Have you ever been told you can't say something because it might hurt someone's feelings? Or maybe you felt that someone else's opinion was so offensive it just shouldn't be allowed. Well, we're digging into a huge question today. In a free society, do you actually have a right not to be offended?
I mean, really think about that for a second. Where do you draw the line between one person's freedom and another person's feelings? Is putting up with ideas and behaviors that annoy us or even disgust us just the price we have to pay to live freely?
To really get to the bottom of this, we need to go back, way back to the 19th century, and a giant of philosophy, John Stuart Mill. He came up with what he called one very simple principle to figure out exactly when we're allowed to step in and limit somebody's freedom.
And here it is in his own words. It's so powerful because it's so simple. The only reason society can interfere with what you do, the sole end, is for one reason and one reason only: self-protection.
So let's break that down. This is the harm principle. It says that the only justification for using power over someone against their will is to stop them from causing harm to other people, not to prevent them from harming themselves, and not for any other reason you can think of.
This slide just lays it out so clearly. On the left, you've got that one single legitimate reason, preventing harm to others. But look at the right. Mill is super clear that you can't force someone to do something just because you think it's for their own good, or because it'll make them happier, or just because you find what they're doing to be foolish or perverse or just plain wrong.
Okay, so this brings us to the most important distinction in this entire debate. For Mill's principle to actually work, we have to be able to draw a very clear line between what actually counts as harm and what's just offense.
And here's that critical difference. See, harm is about objective, tangible things, a definite damage, or at least a risk of it to our vital interests, like our physical safety or our property. Offense, on the other hand, is subjective. It's all about our feelings: annoyance, disgust, shame, hurt feelings. And look, those feelings are absolutely real. No one's denying that. But according to this principle, they just don't count as harm in a way that justifies taking away someone else's liberty.
Mill had a fantastic example to make this crystal clear. He said an opinion like corn dealers are starving the poor should be totally legal to print in a newspaper. But that exact same opinion loses its protection when it's shouted to an angry mob gathered right outside a corn dealer's house. See the difference? At that point, the speech isn't just causing offense anymore, it's actively instigating harm.
So the principle seems pretty clear in those extreme cases, right? But of course, life is rarely that simple. Most of life is lived in the gray areas, and that's where trying to apply this simple principle gets, well, a lot more complicated.
And that's the real question, isn't it? What if someone's speech doesn't start a riot, but it causes severe, prolonged mental distress? Where does that fall? If an action doesn't break any of your bones, but it violates your rights, is that harm? Suddenly, that clear line starts to get pretty blurry.
And here are just some of those complexities. Mill himself was really worried about the tyranny of the prevailing opinion. You know, the power of the majority to silence dissent, not with laws, but with social pressure. Then you have that line between offense and incitement, like with the corn dealer. And what about harmless wrongs? Think about it. If no one is physically hurt, but a right to privacy is violated, is that harm? And finally, while we can all probably agree that being rude is morally wrong, should it be legally wrong?
This is where the philosophy really forces us to make a tough choice. To protect liberty, thinkers like Mill argue that we have to be willing to put up with a certain amount of, well, inconvenience.
And here it is, straight from Mill again. Society has to tolerate behavior that doesn't cause a perceptible hurt to a specific person, even if it's annoying or offensive. And why? For a much bigger prize, the greater good of human freedom. That annoyance, that inconvenience, that's the price we pay for liberty.
And there's another really important reason. The only way we figure out what's true and get rid of what's false is by letting ideas clash. It's in the collision of adverse opinions. If we start silencing opinions just because they offend us, we might actually be silencing a truth we haven't recognized yet. The popular opinion is almost never the whole truth.
The philosopher Jeremy Waldron makes a really powerful modern point here. In a diverse, multicultural society like ours, talking about big, important topics, things like religion or politics, is basically guaranteed to offend someone. But he argues these subjects are just too important to be shut down by someone's hurt feelings. From this point of view, offense isn't just unavoidable, it's a necessary part of public debate.
So what does this all boil down to? Let's try to summarize. 1.
You have a fundamental right to be safe in your own body and to your own property. 2. This framework argues that you do not have a general right to be protected from mental distress just because you run into disagreeable ideas or different lifestyles. And 3. This actually puts a responsibility back on all of us. Living in a free society means we need a degree of emotional self-control, the ability to live alongside people whose behavior we might find, as one source put it, alarming, offensive, or abhorrent.
And all of this leaves us with the crucial question for our time. This principle was developed in an age of pamphlets and town squares. So what does it mean for us, right now, in an age of social media, online harassment, and viral disinformation? The challenge for all of us is to figure out where that line is, where offensive speech ends and actual harm begins in our 21st century digital world.
Das Wahre ist das Ganze.